Hello, hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Logan Slaughter, and when I'm performing, I go by Logan Hardcore. As I stated, this channel is going to be a myriad of many things because I am. It's going to be my drag race reviews, drag makeup, and also a place to come to talk about my recovery. A year ago, just about a year and a month, I made the choice to cut out alcohol and other things from my system. I did this by entering the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And I think something that needs to be said immediately is that alcoholics are not what they're portrayed on TV. There's so many different versions. I was just recently rewatching Desperate Housewives, and the way that they portray Brie Vanderkamp as an alcoholic is true to some stories, but that was not my story, and it is not everyone's story. Being an alcoholic doesn't mean you wake up at 7 in the morning and start drinking until you go to bed and you're hiding it and it's in your coffee. That doesn't have to be your story. That was not my experience. After a lot of work this past year, I now know that I drank to mask insecurities and past trauma and to deal with social anxiety. I was never someone that drank at home unless we were having a get-together, but on a night where it was me and my husband, I wouldn't have a glass of wine while I cooked or had dinner. That just wasn't for me. Drinking for me was a social escape and a way to fit in when I was out socially or working in drag. You have to understand that this is a taboo thing for me because I was getting paid to be in bars, and I thought that it was part of my character to drink and get drunk and get high and be that person. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true. This goes back to about 2012, was probably some of the first times I really knew that I had an issue. I was the person that reached out to people like Marty Gold Cummings and said, I have a friend that's looking for recovery help. Like, do you know anywhere they can look? And I'd get the advice from Marty and I would never take it. I had just gotten into a relationship with my now husband, and very quickly he pointed out that my drug use was a problem. So this ties into, I didn't do drugs unless I was drinking. I did drugs to drink better and longer and be able to not be messy and stay out all night. My story comes to a screeching halt in P-Town last year, and there was many things that led up to it. The last year of pandemic was really tough for me. There were numerous occasions leading up to my rock bottom that probably were my bottom, but I wanted to dig deeper. This is the point where I'm going to come in and say that a year ago when I got sober, I created a podcast called The Hardcore Honest Tea, where, you know, it was dishy and drag race and housewives and gay drama. After a year of doing this podcast, I've realized that my voice and my passion is in the recovery community. So I will be switching the platform to be a new podcast based upon recovery with interviews with nightlife guests, real housewives that are sober, drag race girls that are sober, and just based upon that, hear their stories, hear their experiences, and you know, in there's going to be drama and bullshit too. But I just have found in the past year that my true passion lies in being a voice for the recovery community. I asked on my Instagram if there were any questions that people had, and there was a lot that came in. A lot of them were kind of right in the same. And a lot of them are things I'm going to do specific episodes on the podcast, which we don't have a name for yet. If you want to leave a name suggestion, that would be great. I am thinking of hardcore recovery. So a lot of questions are based upon my friends and how that's changed. And one thing that was asked is, what do I plan to do different in my second year? That brings me to this video, the new podcast. I plan to really make my voice heard and be a voice for the recovery community. I think there's such a stigma around the word alcoholic, and I think that I am someone that shows you can still be fun and go out, and your life doesn't have to be boring, and you don't become a nun when you get sober. So many people reach out to me asking about recovery, and I just want my voice to be heard and to use my platform to be heard for this community, because I know it was imperative that I heard it when I was getting sober. And to that point, I want to thank Marty Gold Cummings, Jasmine Rice LaBeija, Bob the Drag Queen. Those are some drag queens and nightlife workers that are sober and a voice for it and successful, that made me realize I could do this. And I also want to give an incredible, large, huge shout out to Bronwyn from The Real Housewives of Orange County for sharing her story so openly and vulnerably and raw, because it was her episode that made me realize I am an alcoholic, and I went into AA 2 days later. What is the most important thing I learned this year? I learned why I drank and why I did drugs. I learned that I have an incredible anxiety issue. My social anxiety is otherworldly. FaceTiming with some of my best friends, I get nervous. And the way that I hid that was to drink, because when you drink, everything numbs. And I drank to hide hurt, to not feel hurt, to not feel the pain of losing my mother, to not feel the pain of my father having stage 4 lung cancer right after losing my mother, to not deal with being insecure around gay men, to not feel insecure around straight people. I drank to numb my anxiety, and that has been life-changing for me to realize and to be able to accept that I have these issues and now begin to work on them. And another question I got a lot of is, how did I start? Well, I self-detoxed for 6 days, and I then saw Bronwyn's episode about AA, and I Googled AA meetings near me, and I walked into my first meeting, and I walked out after saying, "Hi, I'm Logan, I'm an alcoholic," which still gets me. When I walked out of that meeting, I felt lighter, and I felt like something had shifted in me. And I never wanted to lose that feeling. So I continued. And then the lockdown really went back into a second wave of lockdown. And I went to Zoom meetings 2 times a day. And I got involved in doing service for the Zoom meetings. And now I still do that. Just really diving into this community. And finding my footing in the community and where I stand in my beliefs and what I believe works for me, and being a voice for that. So the way I got started was I asked for help and I followed the direction. With all of this being said, I just want to say thank you guys for listening to this. Thank you for supporting me always. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. I don't know if the new podcast is going to have a video element. The Patreon is going to continue. It will cover things from the podcast. It will cover just normal things that we always talked about on the Patreon. But I think for me, for now, for 2022, this is the road that I would like to be on. So again, leave some comments with name suggestions for a podcast based around recovery. My name is Logan, and anytime you need anything, you can write me on here. You can DM me on Instagram. I read every single thing, and I respond to everything that is recovery related. And my Instagram is LoganXHardcore. Reach out to me anytime. I am here. I will do what I can to help. So this year has been a whirlwind, and I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm healthier than I've ever been. My relationship's in the best place it's ever been. I'm able to be present for my sick father and be here and focused on the time I have and be grateful for it. And I'm able to be present for my nephews and what's coming down the line for me and my husband. It's just an incredible gift that I've given myself. And I'm very grateful and honored to be able to share my story, my way, with all of you.